time for another edition of the Daily Racing Form Weekend Preview. I am Gino Buccola. Thanks so much for joining me here. I'm going to be flying solo this week as we had our producers moving everything around to make sure that we could still get you some great horse racing coverage leading into this weekend. It's a big weekend right now. We're all thinking about the Kentucky Derby because we're on the road to the Derby. There's another stop on that road to the Derby this week over at Tampa Bay Downs with the Tampa Bay Derby. That's what we're going to talk about in our first segment. Then in segment 2, we'll get into the reigning horse of the year, Torpedo Anna. She's going to be making her return to the races. And so we'll preview that race, which is going to be at Oaklawn on Saturday. The Azeri in the final segment. We'll preview the Grade 1 Beholder, a nice graded stakes race out at Santa Anita this weekend. So 3 segments, 3 different races to preview for you. We're going to be bouncing all around, and we start over at Tampa Bay Downs with the Tampa Bay Derby. Kentucky Derby points are up for grabs. They are on the line here. Let's meet the field. From the inside, we start with the number 1, Owen Almighty. Now, he comes off a runner-up effort in the Sam F. Davis. That is the local prep race right before the Tampa Bay Derby. And for Owen Almighty, he's been very good in his entire career. It's really tough to knock his overall body of work. He's going to make his 3rd start now of the year after a layoff, so he should be stepping forward, getting a little more fit, could be set for a big performance. And in this field, he could get a really nice trip. It looks like there's a couple that have some speed, but he also can sit behind horses. He's not a horse that needs the lead. So for running styles, he can kind of show speed, or he can sit just behind horses, I think, and can pass them there. So that's the 1, Owen Almighty, who will begin the field. The number 2, Chancer McPatrick. He was one of the best horses in this age group last year. So he's a 3-year-old now. He's going to be making his first start as a 3-year-old. He has not raced since the Breeders' Cup when he was one of the favorites in that race, but he just didn't run all that well. The way the track was playing out, it was playing much better for horses who have front-running speed, and that's just not what Chancer McPatrick is. That would be my main concern with him in this race. He's not that fast early, and it's going to be his first start since November. So I think they're going to try to get this race to get him some fitness built up, and then in his next start, you could probably expect a better performance from him. And then maybe even in the Kentucky Derby, expect him to try to peak and run his best race that day. It's all kind of a timing thing. You don't want your horse, or your same thing with the team, right? You don't want your team to peak too early in the season, and then come playoff time, you're just not playing as well as you were. That's what we need to see here from some of these horses kind of moving into the Kentucky Derby and those big races. So Chancer McPatrick, he'll add the blinkers. Both the 2, Chancer McPatrick, and the 3, Hill Road, are both going to be adding the blinkers. They're both trained by Chad Brown, and both of them are just not that fast early. A lot of times when you see a trainer or some connections add the blinkers, what that will do is it'll give a horse a little bit more focus, and it'll give a horse a little bit more speed. So that's what I think they're hoping to get for both Chancer McPatrick and Hill Road. A couple thoughts on the number 3, Hill Road. Was very good in his only start on the dirt. He finished 3rd in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. He actually finished in front of Chancer McPatrick, who's his stablemate and who was much more of the kind of the horse to beat in that race. So Hill Road also adds the blinkers. Both of these horses will be trying to close late, and they can just hope that they're not coming from so far out of it. The number 4, Brodeur, kind of the opposite end of the spectrum when you're talking about running styles. Brodeur has been impressive in his last 2 races, but in both of those races, it's been on a wet track, and he's been able to pretty much get to the front end and dictate things. And I just don't know if he's going to be able to get those type of circumstances in this particular race, because Brodeur will have to deal with Owen Almighty, who's pretty quick early on. And then to the outside, you have Naughty Rascal, who's pretty quick early on. You also have Patch Adams, who I think is going to be able to sit pretty close. So with a few other speed horses here, I just need to see one from Brodeur. I need to see how good he is before I'm able to really, get excited about his chances in this particular spot. So the number 5 is Filoso, and Filoso will add the blinkers. Now, he's, again, just like Chancer McPatrick and just like Hill Road. He's a deep closer who is now going to add the blinkers, hoping that the equipment change can shake him up a little bit and get him closer in the race early on so he doesn't have to be so far back and he doesn't have to be kind of at the mercy of everyone else in the race, right? When you're a deep closer, you need the horses in front of you to go really fast and to set it up well for you. And if that doesn't happen, you're going to be in some serious trouble. And that's what worries me about a horse like Filoso in here. Can the blinkers get him a lot closer? We'll find out. We move to Naughty Rascal. He's the next one to take a look at. Now, he's one of these horses who is better than his running lines would suggest. He's a very honest horse. He's a fighter. I just don't know how far he really wants to go. He's a horse who's run well on turf. He's run well on dirt. He's run well over at Tampa Bay Downs, but he's not a horse who I think really wants to go farther than a mile. And this is a race at a mile and a 16th at Tampa Bay Downs. So what I'm projecting for Naughty Rascal, I think he's going to be the type of horse who shows some early speed, who's going to be a part of the early pace. And I could see him, maybe hanging on for like a third or a fourth in here. But of a big price, if you're playing, trifectas, if you're playing and looking for bigger prices, I wouldn't talk you off using him at the bottom of your exotics, just like others a little bit more in here. And the trips they might get could be just a little kinder and a little softer than what will happen for Naughty Rascal. We round things out with Patch Adams. Patch Adams is the number 7 in here. And he's raced 3 times in his career. And overall, I think he is a horse who has one of the highest ceilings. Like if everybody showed up with their A game and they all ran their best race, I think Patch Adams would win this race. What I like about him, he has some speed, but he can also sit off horses and pass. And he's shown us some versatility. I could really see him getting a perfect trip in this race where it could be Owen Almighty and Brodeur and Naughty Rascal as 3 horses kind of pushing each other early on. And then Patch Adams could be right behind them, and he could be right in front of those 3 deeper closers like Chancellor McPatrick and Hill Road and Filoso. I'd love to see Patch Adams sitting 3rd or 4th in this race. I think he could get a fantastic trip in here. He's coming off of an effort last time out in the Southwest. That was over at Oaklawn Park. And he just didn't have a very good start to the race. So he ended up much farther back than normal. And he was 7th out of 9 horses in that race. In his first couple starts, he'd been a lot closer. And he showed us a new dimension. He showed us that if something goes wrong and if everything isn't going your way, he can still overcome that and run well. And that's what he did last time out when he finished 4th in the Southwest. He made a big move into contention. He was closing very well, and then he just got a little bit tired late. That was also his first start going 2 turns, his first start going longer. I think he's going to have more fitness here. And I just project him to get a fantastic trip. He's drawn really, really well. Patch Adams to the outside is going to be the top selection for me. Now, from a gambling standpoint, I don't know price wise, if he's 2-1, is that a good enough price for you? I much prefer him to Chancellor McPatrick. If we can get around 5-2 or so, I think I'd be willing to make a win wager on Patch Adams. I just don't know if you're going to get a price that's playable on him, but I do think he is the horse to beat. When you look at my selections here, I'm going to put Patch Adams on top. The number 7 is my top selection in the Tampa Bay Derby. Other horses that I will include underneath and around this horse. I did think that Filoso is a horse with the blinkers coming on, maybe a little bit of upside if they try to get him more involved early. So if you're looking for a price horse, that could be one that I could include. Chancellor McPatrick and Owen Almighty, they're very, very logical in here. I think they make a whole lot of sense. They're all going to have to hold off Chancellor McPatrick. I'm just going to assume that he's a little bit short in this race, and it'll take a couple races for him to build up his best fitness. So we'll put the 7, Patch Adams, on top in the Tampa Bay Derby. When we return from this quick break, we're going to head on out to Oaklawn Park. We're going to talk about the reigning horse of the year, Torpedo Anna. Don't go anywhere.